Hey guys, this is Mika. I just wanted to introduce this. This is a interview that I did with Whirlwhip who is a pretty prominent bruiser in NA who's been fielded in a variety of wars between various levels of gameplay. He's played with the best of the best. He's played with the worst of the worst as one of the best and kind of everything in between. So he has like a lot of background knowledge when it comes to playing Bruiser, playing in different environments, learning how to like adapt and play around various situations. He's a very good carry Bruiser, I would say. As both an on-point and off-point player, he's usually the one that makes plays. He's like one of the players that's responsible for dropouts beating Supple one of the few times that it happened. And he is just overall like a very aggressive player who is just very good at the game. So this interview's with him. We talk about a lot of like bruiser mechanics, what to run. It's a little bit less of like cut and dry, like run this gear, you'll be this. It's a little bit more of a how do you adapt to your surroundings? How do you play? How do you get more value out of your toolkit? And that is what this interview is focused about. So it's a little bit more in depth than usual. I have the full interview on my Twitch. I've tried to edit it down and spin it in a way where it's a little bit uh, less boring here, and I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
I'm definitely just trying to figure out what I can get away with now, like on different servers, because like different servers and different companies run different, they run different shit. Like some people's like point bruisers, like on like Valhalla, like I've been seeing Stoneform point bruisers, and I'm like that's interesting. Like I could probably get away with less elemental aversion, right? Because like I'm not getting detonated on point because their point bruisers don't even run it,
Yep.
kind of thing. So it's like I think it's really dependent on like what you're against, kind of like scouting almost. I think
Yeah.
elemental aversion just feels so good though.
Yeah, it's very consistent, which I like about that.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not that hard to like proc shirking though, right? Like you see a shockwave, you dodge a shockwave. If like
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the same thing with wrecking ball, right? Those are like the two things I find myself dodging more than anything else is like shockwaves when I can, and then wrecking balls basically.
I feel like
When I could just grit through wrecking ball though, but I think
yeah.
it's worth because wrecking ball's so easy to use to proc shirking, right? Like you just dodge the wrecking ball, boom, insta shirking proc.
Mhm. Do people run or what do you think about medium versus heavy too? Because that's like a big bruiser thing right now. Because you play on points, so there's kind of like you can go for both or
Yeah.
either if you want. But
So I think I don't know from what I've seen, it's like heavies just do no damage. They're just a body on point, right? Like they just create clumps, and I think it's probably really hard. Like two medium bruisers, I think have way better white potential than two heavy bruisers, right? But the thing is, it's like those heavy bruisers can stand on point like probably infinitely longer. So I think the medium bruisers, like on point, need more support from their army than the heavy bruisers do to live, if that makes sense, right?
yeah.
Because if you're not getting any support, like you're probably just gonna die if you stay on point too long. Whereas heavy bruisers can sustain themselves much longer. But they're gonna have a different issue where it's like instead of needing their army to survive, they're gonna need their army to help them kill clumps.
Yeah, I feel like with medium bruisers, they tend to like leave point at a certain point because they have to in order to live, and they can't like exist on point all the time. But they
Yeah,
also blow up stuff like pretty well.
yeah, like two bruisers, like if your co-bruiser's on it with you and you're both like you're both on the same wavelength, like you can like two bruisers can wipe a clump. Medium bruisers like can like absolutely like tear shit up. Like you full combo with detonate and like you just wipe that. Like that's you guys doing it. But like from what I've seen, like you kind of like for heavy bruiser, you just don't have the damage, right? Unless you have like everything go perfectly. You need your VGIGs with you, which is like the dream scenario, right? But you need
Yep.
like more follow up. You need everyone to continue to follow up to your clump to finish it. I feel like it's so much harder for
Yeah.
heavy bruisers to secure their own clumps, whereas medium bruisers can just do it themselves. Yeah, I think it's so cool to see how other like basically other classes use cleanse because like for bruiser, I feel like it's so set in stone. Like you cleanse before you go into a clump. Like
Yep.
there it is. Like it's so simple. Like if you're not cleansing before you go in, like you're literally trolling. The only other time like I think it's like it makes sense to like burn your cleanse is like an all in, right?
Hmm.
Like everyone's like all inning and like you're never gonna realistically be able to like get like a gravel off when you're surrounded by four melees all with wrecking ball all ready to go. Right? You're just popping your cleanse so you make sure that you can like raw shockwave maelstrom kind of thing, right? But other than that, like I don't know. Like it's so set in stone. You just like cleanse like Gravwell or like you just sneak a cleanse in before you do anything in a clump. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Versus I'm trying to use it mid-fight half the time.
Yeah, exactly, right? And then like I know VGIGs are like doing some crazy shit where they like actually cleanse, like they actually look at their hotbar and they're like, oh, I have this on me, like let me cleanse. Like I'm like, what? Like no way, like I'm paying attention to every single like red thing on my hotbar. Like nah, it's just not happening. Like there's so much happening, it's not worth it. Unless I guess there are times like if I'm like 2k HP and like my healer like says that they're healing me, and then I notice that it heals me for like 1k. And then like I'm fucking diseased this shit. Like I already know. So
At
I'll literally
that
just
point,
like
I
pop
already
the
know I
cleanse on and
lost.
disengage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, you're already dead. If you get healed
Yeah,
for
I mean that's
1k,
like
you're like,
so
oh,
niche, right? Like I mean that's like as like I'm running out like of the clump and I see like and like maybe I fucked up and I didn't pop my cleanse, which is like
oh.
probably should never be happening, right? You should always make sure your cleanse goes off. Like then you just burn it, so it's on like the same rotation. Basically, fuck it. Specifically you want to play and how your army wants to play, right? But I think
Oh.
I think if you're just like a solo player, like I think medium bruisers is like it's just insane. Like you can just get so much more like solo playmaking potential as a medium bruiser than you can a heavy bruiser. But your heavy bruiser can like coordinate and like lead your army and lead the clump almost better because you can just be that body that is constantly in there drawing pressure, keeping the clump alive almost, right? Because if you
Yep.
have 5 people just swinging on a heavy melee, like that heavy melee is there, like you're just holding the pressure, you're keeping the clump where it is. But a medium bruiser has to get out, right? And then the clump like disperses and you kind of have to make it somewhere else.
If you're for Bruiser, it's definitely a role that you need like 2.5 perk. Like there are definite like minimum requirements that you need in order to be effective that are beyond the 2 perk. I'm guessing, right? Like you need like kind of a 2.5 perk axe. Well, probably 2.5 perk axe. You need the enfeebling. You I don't know if you need grav anymore. You probably still want the grav.
I mean, grab is great. It just applies like to the burst, right? Like it
Yeah.
still like it's still worth it. Any amount of burst that you can add to your combo, right? Because like the only way things die anymore is like either you're getting zerged by like 10 melee or like you're just getting zerged and you're just dead, right? Like there's nothing you can do. You're not really getting picked apart over the course of 30 seconds, right? Like it's all burst. Burst is what kills you. So insatiable like helps provide that.
Yeah, and there's no
But
way
in
to.
terms of like, oh sorry, what were you
Oh
saying?
no, you go, you go.
I was gonna say in terms of like two perkers, like some people are of the idea that you drop freedom, right? Like if you're running two perkers, you give up on the freedom, right? And then you go like elemental aversion resil, right? Those are your two perkers right now. Like there's no reason like sometimes it's okay to run Shirking Fort, but I think if you're going for straight value, right? Your bargain bin value, like resil elemental aversion's your best bet, and you just give up freedom.
Yeah, I mean that being said, you of the mails if you don't run Maelstorm, you're not getting value opinion as a bruiser. Like how big of
Well,
a
like
deal is
on like
that?
on Axe or on you have to run it
Yeah.
somewhere. You have to run it somewhere. It is so good. Weekend is so good right now. Unfortunately, there is like the gap right now with how expensive it is to run, right?
Yep.
Because you have Thwarting Strikes, Enfeebling Maelstrom, Refreshing Move, right? That's like the Bisser, like Soldier Axe. Unfortunately, it'll cost you a lot. So unless you're like actively like making gold somehow, then it's kind of hard, and it's probably cheaper to get it on your armor. Also like you can give up a perk on armor, whereas like if you're I feel like putting it on armor and having a two perker on your armor is so much more valuable than having it on your axe and losing like a thwarting strikes or a refreshing move, both which are super valuable, right? Like
Yeah.
because you can drop down to like 4 resil, 4 freedom, like 4 shirking on it with a two perk, right?
Mhm.
Like you can do that, but on an axe you're losing like refreshing move or thwarting strikes, which is crazy.
Yeah, even with the refresher move not cleaving, it's just like so good and so important for like
It's still
pressure and
so
everything.
good. Well, because you should be light attacking people for cooldowns basically all the time, right?
Yep.
Like if you don't have a gravel, you're finding one person to light attack. Maybe it's in a clump, right? Maybe it's like a healer. It should ideally be a healer, but it's not always possible, right? And you just find someone, you reset your cooldowns, go back in. It's literally it. It's how you play the game. You use all your cooldowns and you find someone to light attack to harass them to create value in space, and then you just go back and rinse and repeat. So Keen is better this patch. It just is. Right? So you can get it like a refreshing move, Thwarting Strikes, Keen Axe for pretty cheap, right? You can get like a bargain bin value axe, and like it'll still be effective, right? As long
Yeah.
as you have like enfeebling on your.
Armor.
That'd be the only thing you're missing, right? You'd be missing like a chain to charge ult,
Yeah, which
right? Or
that's
like
not that
enfeebling.
bad. Yeah.
and then you can just you can just put enfeebling on armor, and then you still get like it's obviously it's less value, but it's better to have it. IMO,
Yep,
especially like I would never give up refreshing move. If you give up refreshing move on your 2 perk, like Axe you're trolling, because like obviously if you get your cooldowns back faster, you can apply that weaken more often,
mhm,
right? So it's worth it to do that.
yeah,
But I think the armor gap is probably bigger, right? Because it doesn't matter how good your weapon is if you can't be alive to use it. That's the thing, you
that's
know.
true.
Like you have to be alive. You have to be able to live, especially as bruiser. Like you're the front line for the army, right? Like if have you ever seen a war with no bruisers? It goes terribly. you
Yeah.
need your bruisers to be alive. So yeah, I think I think armor is just so important right now. Like just for survivability, there's so much damage in the game right now. There's so much burst that if you can't survive the burst, I mean, obviously you're gonna die, but then you need to be able to survive it. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to do anything because people have gotten good enough to where all the damage that is coming out is basically burst, right? Unless you're getting like, there's like insignificant damage, I'd say in this.
Mhm.
It's just like maybe like a fire staff flamethrowing you. It's not insignificant. It causes you to rotate. You kind of can't just sit there and take it. But like light attacks from great axes, that's another insignificant. The only times you're dying is to straight burst. People who like time their burst really well and they full send a clump and then you just get fucking eaten alive. So your armor to keep you alive during that is probably more important than a weapon, right? Because if you're getting zerged, the last thing you kind of want to do, like in my opinion, is to try and like ego fight it. Like right, like if there's 10 bruisers on you, you're not gonna use your axe, your bis axe, to try and fight them. You're gonna pull back, and the thing that's gonna help you do that the most is your armor, not your axe, right? So I think
Oh.
prioritizing armor over your weapon is probably more important.
Or do you think like 625 gear score is, or is that like necessary for
Okay,
someone
so
starting
I
out?
actually I had my mind blown on this recently, very recently, because now that Fortify is boosting your armor value, right?
Yep.
It's not flat damage reduction. It is very worth it to go 625, just because that boosts your armor rating. The higher gear score your armor, the more armor you get, right?
Especially with Shirking Fort, because everything that's just gonna make your Shirking Fort even better then.
Yeah, exactly. So my goofy ass has been running around at like 602, like with all my new gear. Like so all this fortify that I'm getting is now less valuable simply because I'm not 625 because it scales off your armor rating, not anything else anymore. It's not damage reduction, it's armor rating. So, being a higher gear score is 1000% worth it.
The Bruiser checklist is basically get your 2 perk gear plus enfeebling plus Maelstorm on something. Gravel is nice. 2.5 perk axe, which isn't that much anymore. Like a 2 perk warhammer, which isn't terrible. The the god amulet, which you kind of have to get at some point to play PvP. Ring does I guess it's just slash invig and third doesn't matter as
So
much.
keen. So the way I've been told, right, and like, cause I don't do all the testing. I simply play the game, so I can like, right. But from what I've been told and what I've like found myself, right, cause I used it in one of these wars. Basically, so slash is like kind of flat, like in power, right? So that can get affected by weaken, right?
Hmm.
So if you're getting weakened a lot, then it's worth it to run keen. Keen on your ring, keen, invig, and then hardy. So champ's ring alone is a free bis. It is very good. You just play PvP and you get it, like PvP track. Hope you grab it. Maybe it won't take you 160 tracks like it took me, but
Oh,
it's
I'm up there.
1000% worth it. Just run it. Like I've been running a 600 invig slash ring on this account just because I don't have champs,
Damn.
but it is worth it to run champs.
Do you think that for like a newer player, medium would be like an easier thing to get into? Well, not that there are too many newer players at this point, but like I don't know if you're thinking of like a player that's trying to get break in from like a tier 4 level war to like a tier 3 level war, or tier 2 from a tier 3 to tier 2, like medium's probably the way to go because there's more
Yeah,
slots.
yeah. So heavy is such a unique role in which it's probably only slotted on point team, and even then, it's not even slotted like all the time, right? Most like companies don't really slot heavy bruisers on point. That's like a COS kind of thing, right? But
Yeah,
medium bruisers, like it's so much more versatile too in what role it can accomplish. So I think it's much better to get good at medium bruiser than heavy bruiser at the moment.
yeah.
It's not like the old days where you could just fucking slap on a heavy set and never die and literally be Thanos. I mean, that was crazy. You just have like you have two healer groups, right? Two heavy bruisers, two healer group, a VGIG, and then that was it. And you'd never die, and you just like stand. But it's like not the meta anymore. Like medium bruiser is just like it just makes up the majority of main ball. Those in medium IGVGs and BBs basically. So if you're trying to get slotted, probably medium melee. Like if you are picking like a class that is in the melee category. It's medium melee, or it's probably nothing. Duels will teach you your mechanics and your timing, right? Like for those kind of things. But I mean, it's pretty hard to learn in OPR right now, just because you have all the fire staffs and the bows. You kind of just have to slam reps and practice dodging. Like at this point, OPR is just like practicing for good stand management, like good fight selection, good ability usage kind of shit, right? Like you can't even practice cleanse in OPR, unfortunately, but you can practice like your spacing. You can practice dodging
Yeah.
abilities, right? Like your iframes and all that. It's just mechanics,
I mean,
light
maybe
attack charges,
3v3 would be
everything like
better
that.
even. But I don't do 3v3 a lot. I might.
I play 3v3s as medium bruiser, and I haven't lost a threes game in like forever. Like I just like I it's so funny because I'll literally just troll. Like I'll have like some goofy stats, but I'll play medium bruiser, and I'm just like fuck it, I'll just like Q2, get my gypsum and get out, and I just like run at their healer, and then they just like fall over, and then but it's good practice still, right? Because like there's like spear creatures, like greatsword creatures, like you just learn how to practice like dodging abilities and stuff, right? Stand management, all that good stuff. Maybe there's a bruiser that you can like practice getting out of grab wells with or something.
Oh, you got an opinion on Whirlwind versus Charge?
I am I am a charge user for life. I love charge. I think the skill ceiling for charge is way higher.
Yeah, you can use it
I
offensively too.
You can use it on light attack charge. You can be like a heat seeking missile through clumps with charge. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with charge. I think Whirlwind has a lot of I don't know. I don't know how to like explain it in a really like concise way, but I think Whirlwind is really good for the role that you have it assigned to. So like heavy bruiser, I think is really good because like you get fortify kind of thing, right? And fortify now, I think it still gives fortify, right? Fortifying Whirlwind.
Yep, it's a
Yeah, so
lot.
I think yeah, I mean it's a lot, and if you're heavy, like the way fortify works, it just boosts your armor number, right? So it's like super valuable there, and it makes you nearly unkillable. The only thing is, it's like for it to have value, like you have to be heavy, right? Kind of thing. And you also have to basically put yourself in this really goofy animation for a pretty long time. Like it's like, I know you can cancel it now, but it's still like the beginning of the animation and the ending of the animation doesn't have grid, I'm pretty sure. So it is pretty like not dangerous to use. It has the same weaknesses as charge where it's like at the end of the animation you can get caught.
Yep.
It's always the same thing, right? Like mobility. The animation is slower, but it makes you tankier. I think the only reason you should ever use Whirlwind is if you're heavy, and you have the perk, obviously. Where charge is just kind of plug and play. You use it, and it's so simple. It's a get out of jail free card, or it's like a little bit of extra damage to confirm.
If you have a really really fat clump in front of you, what's the best bruiser combo to do to wipe that clump?
Oh fuck. I think it's
Or
dependent on if you're co-bruiser. Like if you were in a war and your co-bruiser calls something, right? Like
yeah,
and it depends on where you are too. If I'm far away and I see it, I'll probably just re-grab it and then just like wrecking ball Maelstrom, just because since the clump has already been formed, they're probably going to be trying to get out for longer. I probably won't even try to shockwave, simply because they've been in there for so long. They're already getting out. The
yeah, they're
shockwave
not
is just
rooted.
the animation is going to take too long, kind of thing. I'd rather try to keep them there with just a wrecking ball. It's less of a commitment than shockwave is, right? And you get the
Yep.
fortify, so if you do get caught, it's fine.
If you're,
I think. Oh, sorry, what were you saying?
what about if you're leading it?
If you're leading, it's just there's a differing opinions on this that I've heard very recently, but for the longest time, I think your bread and butter should just be if you were leading the clump, you should just gravel shockwave maelstrom. It just keeps everyone in the same place, and then at the end of it, you're applying the weekend and you're keeping everyone congregated in one area. It's just your bread and butter. Gravel shockwave maelstrom is just so simple, right? It doesn't
Yep.
change. Worst case scenario, you just gravel maelstrom. You basically should never start a clump with anything other than grab well. Like grab well is like the best ability
Yep.
in the game. Just grab well.
Are there particular people that you look for when you're starting a clump, or is it just like, hey, I see 5 people, I am throwing this button at them?
Okay, if I see like 5 healers, I'm probably not graveling them just because they're all gonna light roll out of it. Most
Yep.
people have good enough reaction time because the gravel animation's kind of long, right? Like you can just roll. Like even a medium bruiser can like start a jump or jump dodge or dodge jump kind of thing, right? To get out of it if they see it coming.
Yep.
So I'm normally looking like as a point bruiser, or like if you're trying to start a clump like that you want to exist and to like pad off of basically, look for just medium players, right? Like it's so simple. Like just gravel the bruisers and you're good.
Yep.
Light players, I don't gravel light players very often. That's more for like half heavies You path light players, you wrecking ball light players, you light attack charge light players. Basically anything that's not a infinitely long animation like grab wheel or shockwave, unless you have like pre-CC on them. Just because the animations are too long that they can just roll away from them.
Looking to save your detonate to combo with other people, and that's like the biggest thing now too.
Yeah. So right now it's how it should be. At least your co-bruisers should be always like vocal, or like try to keep you vocal about what your detonate like cooldown is, what the percentage is, and then in the ideal world you'll both like save your cooldowns, right? All your cooldowns, and then someone, it doesn't matter who it is, right? If you both have your detonate, you both have all your cooldowns. Whoever hits the fattest grab first is usually the one. The other person follows up, right? Drop the ego, follow up to someone else's grab. You just detonate it. Grab will like, and it's always also dependent on how far away you are, who's in it, right? But from my experience, just the same combo still applies. You just grab will, shockwave, Maelstrom. It's just so simple, and you just mix in the detonate there. The best time is probably right after you grab will, right? Just because it'll explode by the time your Maelstrom goes off, so you've reapplied all your Mauler stacks and then it explodes. It's really good.
Yeah, because all the empower from that will work with the detonate.
Yeah,
Do more
exactly.
damage. Makes sense. And then you pop cleanse before, but yeah, it's just kind of a given.
Yeah, I mean you're supposed to pop cleanse before you gravel basically every
Yeah.
time, unless there's like something wrong and like you don't have all your cooldowns,
It
and you
also
probably like save it for something else.
makes it pretty easy to know when bruises are gonna grab too, to be honest, because they're just like you see the people popping a pop before they go into clump, and it's like okay, it's coming.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But it's also like if you don't throw it, like the amount of times you're gonna get your shockwave interrupted, especially if the clump is massive. If you're going into a clump with 10
Yeah.
other bruisers, you're probably gonna get shockwaved. So if you don't have a cleanse popped, like,
Good
and
night.
you're gonna get fogged. I don't know. I think the thing that I've seen, like, 'cause I play in like a lot of different groups randomly, just like kind of plug and play. The biggest thing is like always comms. It's always comms from bruisers. It's like if you can have good comms as a bruiser, you can lead your group so well, or even follow up so well. You can let your maybe like a more comfortable bruiser, someone who's been doing it longer, they can work off of your comms. So if you say that you have detonate, right? Like so if like me as like let me say I'm a bad bruiser, right? If I tell my co-bruiser and they're really confident, I say I have detonate, they could basically guide me and say, okay, I'm gonna detonate, you follow up with me, right? Or they could, say I'll follow up to you so that you have more control and you don't have to worry about the pressure of detonating or like following up, right? You can go for what you think is right, and then the other bruiser will follow up. But letting your co-bruiser know what you are doing is so important so they can follow up. Because a good bruiser will follow up like accordingly to what you're doing, what you're calling.
A lot of it's just kind of like teamwork and working together now.
Yeah, yeah. At the top end, if you want to, I swear to God, if you want to be good, like at the top end, you have to have really good communication because you could be like the most mid player in the world, but if you have like really good comms, like your clumps will probably win more often, just simply because you have like your entire group working with you. Your healer will know when to drop a sacred when you need heals. Just being vocal is so important, right? And like once you know that you're doing all your comms properly, you're like, oh, I felt like I calmed that properly, but I'm still dying. That's when you look into things like, okay, did I cleanse before that grab, right? Did I stand myself out before that grab? Like, where was my positioning? Like those kind of things,
Oh,
because you're good. Like I review like, oh fuck, who was it? I reviewed this like I don't want to name drop actually, but I reviewed
yeah.
him basically, and he kind of knew. Like I was like every time I was like, okay, so here, like, what do you think you did wrong? And he named everything that I was gonna say. I was like, okay, perfect. So like, why haven't you been doing it? And he's like, well, I just kind of like, I stopped. I overheated basically. He was doing it the whole time, and then there's every single time he stopped doing it, he died. So it's just, once you know what to look out for, it's really easy to go back and review yourself and pick out what you can work on, right? But if you're newer, you kind of need someone to tell you like, this is what you were doing wrong. Do this more often, and then you can just go into next war and be like, okay, like I need to do that. Like, and then you go into it next war, practice it again, rinse, repeat. You just keep practicing the same thing to the point where eventually, the only thing that you fuck up on is maybe you just didn't cleanse or something really simple that you focused on so much that you know that you fucked up.